Alicia, this is such a fun day for me because I'm one of those people who's a card-carrying big fan of yours for so many reasons. And I get to sit with you, so it's like my birthday. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm really happy to be here. You seem so lovely.
You're so lovely and you're so lovable and it's like too many of the good things. It's like she's pretty and smart and she's also kind. How does that happen to a human? I don't know, but you're so intent on being in integrity and really all the other shiny things, which is just, it's a jackpot. So I want to know, before we start talking about all the cool ways that you're literally helping the planet right now, I want to know what the heck was happening with you when you were a kid, before we found out who you were. Was there just like this whisper of like, I'm going to do big things? Like, when did that sort of surface for you?
I think two things were happening at the same time. On the one hand, just like every kid, I was performing for my parents. You know, your friends come over and their parents have people over and you put on a show, right? And I don't know if they're just were delusional and were telling my dad, you know, that there's this one woman, Pat Forrest, who said to my dad when I was like 4 years old, no, she's going to be, you know, something. And I think that when that was said, I don't know if that's just power of words. So then we all went along with encouraging or supporting whatever that was, that dancing, that performing, that thing, or if it's just, you know, luck, because I'm pretty sure that every kid performs for their family. But there was this sort of, I was really interested. I was dancing since I was little. And then I was, you know, my parents saw me, my dad took me to see theater in England all the time. So I was watching West End theater and that's what I thought acting was. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't even watch movies or really know much about them. I mean, I watched Sound of Music we had one VCR tape of Sound of Music and of the Three Stooges. So that's what was influencing me.
That's your total view of life.
Sound of Music and the Three Stooges.
You can get by with that. Like, it covers a lot of ground.
That's, if you really look at it, it makes sense. With a little.
It does actually, now that it actually does. Yeah.
There was a little Bruce Lee thrown in there, but that's just because my brother was watching it. So I'd peek, but then I wasn't so interested. Although Bruce Lee's vegetarian, so he's my hero. But then the other thing that was happening at the same time was a lot of, you know, not so great things growing up. And so I was really like, I was an intense, deeply thoughtful person who was trying to figure things out. And I couldn't see a lot of truth around me. I was trying to find the truth. I saw a lot of suffering, you know, in animals. I saw suffering in myself, and I was trying to find, and I was going to Hebrew school and listening to those. I heard your Yiddish earlier.
I know you did. I kind of threw that in to like, let you get the signal, like, member of the tribe. Yeah.
So I was in Hebrew school and hearing them talk about these very deep things, but it seemed sort of superficial in how people were living them out. And I was just, for some reason, not okay with that. So when they would talk about the Holocaust, I'd be like, yeah, but what's happening in Darfur right now at 12? And the rabbi'd be like, can we just talk about the Holocaust? It's like, my whole thing was, yeah, I get it. We want to talk about what happened to us, but what's happening to all of us collectively right now? So for some reason, I think my sense of the world was that there are things that need to be fixed. And I want to be a part of it. And I needed in my bones to figure it out. So when I went to acting school, it felt like therapy. I didn't know what therapy was yet, but it felt therapeutic to stand there and watch other kids who were older than me crying about their parents. It was okay to not like your parents. What? You know, it was okay to have issues, to see, you know, and I was like narcoleptic at the time. I would just fall, every time something went wrong, I just go and fall asleep because I couldn't handle it. You know? So that eventually got out of my system. But yeah, so I think it was just figuring out that there was a lot that needed change, that there was a lot. I was a truth seeker. I've always wanted the truth. Truth makes me feel safe. I don't like being lied to. I don't like things that don't add up. I just need to know what's really going on. And I, unfortunately for everyone around me, I have a radar. So I know the second something's like, it's like CNN, it's like the ticker tape at the bottom.
Yeah.
What's really going on?
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's amazing and so cool to hear about you and what was going on for you at such a young age, because you're definitely doing all of that now. And the platform that you built in acting, wow, it really has allowed you to bring so many people into awareness of so many things, and what a gift that you could use all your gifts, right? And you can continue to do that. And I mean, really and truly, like, that is the point of Hebrew school, is like tikkun olam. Like, we're supposed to be fixers, like we're supposed to like help, and so like that's the most Jewish thing that you could be doing and saying. And the fact that some people don't get it is really such a bummer. Like, come on, how do you apply what you just said to your day on every level? So I love you so, so, so much. And I didn't even know most of those things, but I inferred a few of those things from you.
And I want to say that I loved my rabbi. No disrespect to my rabbi. He was amazing and sweet and lovely and doing beautiful things, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you just wanted to take that goodness and say, can't we broadcast this and help da, 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 da. So now tell me what happens the day after your big, like, I know you were doing tons of acting, right? Before Clueless, before, like, you were doing tons of stuff. Like, I know your credits and I remember you from a lot of those shows, but then there was like this big giant earthquake called Clueless, right? What was that like for you, experiencing that, like the day after this movie opens and you're literally the biggest thing in show business? Like, what is that like for you to go through that?
I remember the day I was in New York and I was in a Four Seasons hotel, like living it up, because I was there to do press junket for the film. And, I'd had little tastes, like when The Crush came out, I won, best villain and best newcomer actress. And so that was when people would sort of go, oh, that's the girl from The Crush. There was a lot of that going on. And then the Aerosmith videos were the next thing that really blew up, even though I did like 9 films, a film with James Gandolfini in France, with Alan Corneau. And I did all these, a Jeff Goldblum film I did other things, a movie with Raquel Welch, like all these things, The Babysitter, many.
You're like, I am sophisticated and I'm really good at my craft. And all of a sudden I'm saying as if, and you all think that I'm somebody. Like, haven't you been around?
It was even before that. So people were going, that's the Aerosmith chick. And I was like, excuse me, I am... I was just, what? And then, but it was, all that attention. I was a young woman, so it was not landing super well, let's be honest. And I was very intense about wanting to make good, finding the truth still. And I wasn't aware yet of the animal stuff. I was sort of not there yet, but I just had this deep need to get to the truth of things and to survive and to fix what was happening in my own life. And so anyway, comes Clueless. And now it was like, that's Alicia Silverstone. And then I couldn't go anywhere without people, it was really an intense time. And I was being followed everywhere and I was being chased through airports. And it was
really scary, like legit terrifying.
It was. And I think because we have social media now and we can post pictures of ourselves, we're less interesting. I mean, they still follow you a lot, but it's different. There's a different kind of intensity to it. You can be in control. Like when my son was born, they stayed outside for 7 weeks waiting for a picture of him. But what I did is I took a picture of him instead and released it. And then they all drove away. So it took me 7 weeks to figure, maybe it was 5 weeks, but 5 or 7 weeks it took me to figure out to do that. And then they all went away because there was no longer, that picture was exposed to the world. So there's a little bit more control we have now over so that we don't get harassed, I think, a little bit. And plus I'm not as interesting as I was when I was in Clueless. So it's not as, that heat is not there the same way. But anyway, I think that, I think it was, what's the point of this? I don't know what we're talking about.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's very eye-opening because I think that we live in a culture where people think that that's the luckiest, coolest possible thing that ever happens to a person. And they don't realize that going to lunch becomes something that doesn't feel awesome, or And especially at that age where we're all going through our own inner world, and then everything about you is just under a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
I think that could be quite difficult. So how did you get through that period? And what did that then make you desire next? Like, did that make you feel like, yeah, I'll just keep doing these like blockbuster things? Or did you feel like, yeah, this kind of makes me want to pivot a little bit?
I think I gave the middle finger to the whole thing, to be honest. And I just, I wasn't, I didn't have a sense. I didn't have people around me who knew about longevity in this business or anything like that. And so I didn't really know much. I was just acting blindly. And so what I was doing was, okay, I don't like this, I'm out. And I had no concept of, well, but I love acting. And if I go anywhere, this might not be here when I return. But that didn't matter because I was 19, 20. So I continued to work a little bit, but then things just I just don't think I landed so well. And my awareness about animals and what was happening in the world with animals became really, really powerful for me. I loved my dog so much. And I realized that he was capable of the same kind of love and joy and pain as a cow or a pig. And why was I treating my dog differently than a cow or a pig? And it was just because those are the animals that we live with. But I could live with a cow and kiss that cow and have the cow lay on my lap. And I just recently had a turkey sitting on my lap.
So cute.
And oh no, maybe was it a turkey or a chicken? I've had both. And it was sort of purring like a cat and sitting into my lap like a cat. And I was able to kiss this little creature. And I just wanted people to know, like, I didn't know this. And if we don't know this, we can't act accordingly. So once all this became, I started realizing I basically make out with my dog. He sleeps with me. He's in my bed, basically my boyfriend. But I'm willing, if I hit him, it's going to hurt him. If I cut him, it's going to hurt him. And if I put him in a space where he can't move, it's going to hurt him. So I started to be aware of what creatures are going through and why one is okay and why we torture one and not the other seemed insane to me. And I started to become aware and the suffering that goes on. And that's where all my focus went. And it was sort of like, maybe it was an escape from my own dealing of what I was going through, because I certainly didn't have any sort of emotional, mental health support at that time in my life. So I just went into helping the animals, and that made me feel really good. So I just sort of didn't care about my acting anymore. And I didn't care about, and then I started writing books and I, went on this whole journey. And then one day I went, wait a second, I love acting too. Can I do it both? And then I had to start all over again. And that's sort of where I've been, and luckily been able to do such great stuff and been having so much fun working. So
that's amazing and really important for everybody to hear. I think that, it really is a giant thing that we all can't really even grasp. I think maybe we could get 1 ounce of what it was like for you, but it's very, very big. And at the same time, you have a whole other facet to who you are, which is the meaning you want to make out of your life. And this started to be very, very loud, and you couldn't not see what you were seeing. And so tell everybody then what you're like, because you're doing so many things with helping animals and writing books. And like, when you wake up every day, and then we'll go into some of the details of like the organic vitamin line and then the books. But when you go to sleep every day, if people knew one thing from you that they could do to change how they're interacting with the world or with life in general, what's that one thing you're hoping to get across?
It's such a good question. And I think it's not going to be like one sentence. I'm going to try and say it in a sentence, but I think I really want people to know that they are responsible for what happens in the world, that every action that you take, you have so much power, and you are in control of the suffering that occurs in the world, whether that's the 9 million people who die of hunger a year because we feed the food that could go to those mouths to animals. And I can explain in detail why that doesn't work, but the food to make one steak, it could have fed villages of people, the amount of resources. It's an inefficient use of resources. And all it does is put money in the pocketbook of these corporate machines that we call agriculture. And it's not a little farmer that's your friend down the street. Like, that's just not what it is. 99% of all farms in America are big business. You're giving money to the man. You're not giving money to the little guy. And so, and in turn, you're also hurting your body. So I think what I would love people to wake up every morning going, I can make choices today. And every single way I spend my dollar, it's really about where you spend your dollar. Every single place I spend my dollar, I can be thoughtful about that choice. And that can lead to kindness and world change. Because if I make choices with my fork and with my dollar that represent my values, I don't want to cause harm to myself. Anytime you put animal food, sugar, I mean, sometimes we're going to do these things. It's not, and also that you don't have to be perfect. That's the other thing that I want people to get, is that it's not about perfection. Perfection, hey, let's move in that direction, but we can fall off all the time as long as we just keep getting back on. So the easiest thing for someone to do, because it's hard to condense all of these thoughts, is to read my book, The Kind Diet, because there I outline all of the information about why you might want to do this for yourself, so that you can have the life that you were meant to have, so that you can feel, because I guess the main thing I want for people is less suffering. And suffering comes from the where we put our dollars and where we put our fork. And if we keep filling ourselves with food and fuel and goodness, our mood is going to be different. Our health is going to be different. Our relationships are going to be different. Our awareness is going to be different. Everything's going to be so high vibration that you're just going to have the life that you were destined to have. And then you can go off and be a warrior of change. So that's what I want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no small thing. So what you were just saying is so important. And I want to ask you about this because we had Dan Buettner on the show who discovered the blue zones. And he was like, I've literally written 5 New York Times bestsellers about how being vegan, you will live longer, and people still don't do it. Like, I looked at he's like, I looked at these places around the world and said, why are people in these regions living longer? Some are in Loma Linda, California, some are in Italy. It's not the weather, it's not their religion, it's their food. Like, that's number 1, right? And number 2 was like meditation. So I said, this makes me cry. Like, why are we feeding ourselves and then getting sick? So what do you have to say about that? I think part of it is maybe people feel really overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
How do we lean into it even halfway as we're sort of on this journey? Because clearly the evidence is in,
Yep.
and we need to eat this way, not only because it's kind to these animals, but also to ourselves, like you were saying.
And our planet that we won't have soon. 50%,
just that small thing.
Just small thing, 50% of almost, it's like 1/3 of all global warming is caused by animal agriculture. And the percentage of it roughs out to like almost 50%. So when we look at that, you go, well, if you want to have a place for your children to live, or a place for their grand, like, it may not even be possible. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to get really, really, really hot, which we already know is happening. And it's going to be unbearable to live. And
this is so terrifying, and it's so real, and we have to talk about it.
There's scientists who are like there was some guy who chained himself to a, can't remember which building, some horrible corporation's building, because he said, same thing as Dan said, I've been doing this research. We've been showing you, I'm a scientist. I've been showing you over and over and over. We've been showing you since, I don't know, it's been since like 1960 that they've been talking about what they needed to do. And yet you're not listening. My children are going to suffer. Like, he was in tears. Anyway, the point is that we have many reasons to do these things. So I hope to be inspiring in a way of like, look, it's fun and it's fascinating. In a fun, fashiony way. Like, you can be fabulous. You can look great. I mean, the bottom line is being kind to the earth, being kind to the animals, and being kind to people who are starving to death. All of those things are knocked out with one bowling ball if you're just kind to yourself. the truth of the matter is, if you don't care about the earth, the animals, and people who are starving, fine, you don't have to. What about yourself? You have a chance to get rid of every illness that you have. I mean, almost every single illness can be knocked out with food. So if you want to live well and feel good and look good, look young, have really great skin, have no acne, have great hair, all those fun, silly things that we care about, you can have them. The latest cream that you spend your money on, or the latest pill that you spend your money on, is not the answer to beauty and to good health. So, so I don't know how to get people excited. All I can say is that I do see the change. I do see people coming on board all the time. And I think it has to happen in their own time for whatever reason. You know, it didn't happen to me overnight. I knew when I was 8 years old that I didn't want to hurt animals, but I was lazy and selfish until I was 21 years old. Okay. And so I would flirt. In my book, I call it flirting. You know, I would, from 8 to 21, I was sort of vegetarian, and then I wasn't vegetarian, and I was sort of vegetarian. I would go back and forth because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a little girl. There was no one around me who was doing it with me. And I just ate French fries and ice cream, and that's not really sustainable. So
or is it though?
And then I would give up. And then, you know, anyway, by the time I was 21, it hit me in a way that was so powerful and so real that I recognized that the change that I wanted to see had to start with me. We cannot go around complaining. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to complain about the environment if you're not doing anything about it. 100%. And I don't mean recycling your plastic. Not good enough. Sorry. You know, so if you care, you have to go inside and go, what is it that I can do here? What's the most effective thing I can do? And I don't have to do it perfectly. I can do it as much as I possibly can. I love when people say I'm veganish, like I'm doing it as much as I can. And sometimes I fall off the wagon. Great.
Right. I think that's Jessica Seinfeld's whole thing, right? She's like, just try to do it as much as you can. Right. And then sometimes turns into more times. We had Ed Begley on the show when we first started this podcast. And I said, what's the number one thing people could do for the environment? And I for sure thought he was going to say, like, drive an electric car. And he said, don't eat meat. That's the easiest thing. And I'm like, huh? And that was 5 years ago. And that's when I really learned how much the methane, how much these cows are doing. And he's like, literally, he said, if even people stop eating meat 1 day a week in just that, like, that would be huge. Like, if you could just stop eating. And I was like, that's so doable. Like, why don't people know that? Instead, they're buying a Tesla and they're like eating meat all the time. And it is coming more online. Yesterday, we were on Montana. We ate at Margot's, and I, as a Jewish girl, ordered my first pepperoni pizza because it was vegan. It was so good. And I was like, my kids were all excited because they've never had pepperoni, and they loved it. So I was happy to see, like, this is really a thing that's happening more and more. I want to ask you, because at the same time that you are speaking about this, you're also a woman with a voice. And what I see is that so many women are just not taking the mic in general. And even in podcasting, you know, when I started, I think we were like 13% of podcasts were hosted by women. And now maybe it's like 24%. But if you look at leadership around the world, even though women make up half the world's population, we're definitely not making up half of the world's leaders. And so I'm really impressed, because I think it takes a lot of guts and integrity to have all the things you have, and then be willing to be like, whether you like it or not, this is my truth. And so what advice or thoughts do you have for women listening who have a story that they want to tell? Maybe it's even a similar story, or maybe it's a different story, but there's a feeling of like, well, what are people going to think of me? Or what are they going to say? Like, oh, that's a bummer, or that's a downer, or why do you, like, to be beautiful and strong at the same time is not always something women know that they have the option to do, because I think we're raised to be people pleasers on some level. And I love that you're all of the things and you're not holding back. So how are you allowing yourself not to hold back?
Well, I appreciate that. And I can remember, it really just takes me back to when I was 21 and made this decision to change my life with my food. And I think what it was is that I felt exactly what you said. I didn't have self-worth. My job was to please. And I had very little sense of self. But what I had going for me was youth and sort of rebellious stupidity, where I didn't know the consequences of my actions. And I also didn't care because I was young. So if you had told, so that combination is interesting, because while I was a people pleaser and didn't have a strong sense of self and worth, what I had was a passion for animals. Like, that's what got me. So if you had said to me, Alicia, it would be a really good idea for you to eat differently, it'll make you feel better and look better, I would have been like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell, like, that I couldn't do, because that would be for me, right? Because I didn't have the worth yet. If you told me, something about, I think at the time, I probably could have gotten down with the earth. It just wasn't what hit me first. What hit me was the animals. So the animals, I loved animals. And when I had the awareness that I was like, if everyone could just think that every time you eat any kind of meat, you're eating your dog or your cat, I think it might change things, because you really are. Just like when you eat fish, you're eating a whale, a dolphin, a turtle, all of these endangered sharks, endangered species who are being wrapped up in the nets, and they're just throwing it overboard. So sorry, fun stuff. But the point is that the message that came clear to me, what you're talking about, that's that empowerment.
Yeah.
When I decided to make this change for the animals, not for me, it was like, I remember going, I may not be healthy anymore, because I didn't know about health yet. I may not enjoy food ever again. Oh my God, this is going to be awful. But I will stand with the animals. This was a commitment for them. That kind of commitment changed my whole worth. Suddenly, I was walking around taller. I didn't have this pressure in me anymore. I felt lighter. I felt empowered. I felt empowered as a woman. Like, I can say no to something. I can say this is not okay, and I'm going to do something about it. This was huge for me, for my female self-worth. It was huge. It started to lead. I take everything that I did with the animals as the best karma that ever happened to me, because it changed my whole life. Not only did I ditch my asthma inhaler and stop allergy shots and, lose a ton of weight and lost all my acne, and got really thick, strong nails and great hair, all that stuff, whatever, all my medical stuff went away. But I became empowered as a person and led on a journey that allowed me to listen to my heart. Once I was empowered enough to know, oh, I can say no to something. It took me a long time to be able to say no to other to people. That got hard. That was a harder step.
Of course.
But I was on the journey now. Now I had a taste of, well, this is wrong. And if this is wrong and I'm saying no to it, then perhaps I can say no to things that are wrong to me. Yeah. And perhaps I can listen to what my body needs and what my heart needs too. It took a long time, but it was definitely the thing that busted the door open and allowed me access to my heart and my self-worth and my truth.
That's so important, and it's so beautiful. And I love that you could begin by caring about these little creatures, and then that led you to learn to care about yourself. And I also just want to say, for anybody who's listening, because we talked about meat before, people don't realize that the dairy farms are even, I don't know if you can compare them, but like what I've seen, I'm like, oh, it's even crueler. Like, it's like, don't think just by you gave up meat. It's like what they do to little babies in dairy farms is so disgusting. And the moms, it's like, and so I gave up dairy. That was my first one. And I was like, so happy about that. And also it was the best thing for my health. Like, no one really needs to eat dairy. Like, it's the worst thing. It causes so much inflammation. And like, if you just did one thing at the end of this episode, I feel like everyone try oat milk. It's amazing. Speaking of healing, you have a podcast. You're going to do another season of it, and it's called The Real Heal. And you've had conversations with incredible people. I love Zach Bush. Ed Begley was also on your show. What is it about healing in the broader sense, now that you've learned how to heal with food and heal the planet, but also you're healing yourself? What else has worked for you when you are feeling low, when you're having a bad moment? What do you orient back to that helps you to feel a sense of healing, feel a sense of repair in your own life?
Well, there's so many things, right? And just to speak to the podcast for a second and then to go there.
Yeah.
is that I wanted to ask the question really deeply, what is it going to take for us to heal ourselves? Because everyone's suffering. Everyone's suffering on some level. I mean,
100%.
and people who don't want to hear the truth, you tell them the truth and they freak out, right? Like they can't deal with it. The people who don't want to look at themselves, they don't want to deal with reality, they're lying to themselves. Those are like the simple little ways in which people are self-medicating themselves to death. Everyone's on antidepressants and anxiety meds and not getting to the root of anything, right? So there's so many, and I'm not saying that some people don't need those things. I'm just saying that it's
Oh yeah.
certainly overprescribed, says my dearest friend who's a therapist. Anyway, so the point is people are suffering, and our earth is suffering, and animals are suffering, and other people are suffering. So if we just look at it's too overwhelming. And so what I wanted to do was look at what's it really, really, really going to take to heal ourselves, our planet, and our communities. What are we going to do? And so I had conversations with all the people you mentioned, Kevin Smith, who almost died of a heart attack and then changed his life. And, Pinky Cole in Atlanta, who's taking food deserts and turning them around with her.
That's incredible.
Her restaurants. My friend, Mary Walden, who's an amazing, like one of the most amazing humans, and also happens to be a clinical therapist in Chicago, talking about love and how to love ourselves and what we do. So there's so many things that I do feel like the podcast is the way to get into the nitty gritty of how you can, because you can do so much for yourself. You can do so much for yourself, and it's all available to you. For me, I get overwhelmed a lot because I want to do so much. Like I want to get my podcast done right now, but I'm a little bit pooped because I've just finished like 3 movies, you know what I mean? And I want to be a really present mother. So I'm always really mindful to be with my son. Number one, how do I balance my acting, my activism, my businesses, right? All of these different things that I care about. And I want to have a social life, and I'd like to meet someone. So it's like, there's a lot to balance. And so sometimes I go, oh, and what I do is I just go quiet and I go into like, okay, I know that this is going to pass, this feeling. And all I need to, because I don't need to, what you're panicking right now. What are you panicking about? Take an hour, and you have a choice. You can go on a walk. You can sit down and literally prioritize, like what can wait till tomorrow, push it off. Okay, now we're left with what has to happen. Now what has to happen right now. And that might take an hour for me to do or 2 hours to do, but I feel so much better at the end of it because now I have a plan. Some simple thing that I do that's sort of pathetic, and maybe everyone knew this when they were like 18 and I just figured it out, and I still have to remind myself, oh my God, it's so lame. But every night before bed, if I take a piece of paper and a pen, not my stupid computer that has 7 million notes of what I have to do, but a piece of paper and pen, and literally look at 7 a.m., 7:30, and put everything into a home of time, I suddenly relax and go, oh, there's my day. I don't have time for these things. So now there's no pressure to have to do them. And when I just have my little piece of paper that has every single thing on it, it just, like, then the day then I can relax into what I'm actually capable of doing, because I haven't given myself, this unattainable, unsatisfying list, because where I keep all my notes it's so much. If you saw it, you'd start crying of what I need to do.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I honestly, I think I have a lot to do. And then you just listed that. And I was like, I would need 3 lives to do that.
How I feel.
Yeah, you do. But I also want to say something about you, which is very obvious. And I think it's also a helpful point for people to hear it potentially, which is my rabbi often says, we are just the radio. We're not the song. And when we're a great radio and we have like radical reception, the song plays. And with you, it's so obvious. There's just a stream coming through you. And look, there's a lot of girls who they could have casted in all of those movies, right? Like even when you were young. And there's a reason you were like a magnet for it, because there's something there's very clear signal coming through you. Let's say that. And it's bigger than you. And you you had it early on. You knew, like, what is this? Why do I feel so drawn to? Why do I care so much? Why is there this sensitivity to so much that's bigger than me, right? And so I think part of, at least for me, what's helped me have 3 kids and do whatever I'm doing is like, just show up and let it just move through you. Like, there's no way my ego self is going to be able to do this interview with you. Or like, we had Chelsea Clinton here on Monday and she's like, I have 3 kids and I'm trying to literally change the world. So I'm going to take it 1 second at a time. And she had like 19 things that she does every day. And she's like, and being present, it's amazing. It's like, that's really, like you said, that's where you meet God, like in the present moment. Right. And then it's like, we don't have to muscle it, I guess is what I'm saying. It's like, you were put in this position for a time like this. You've been given all these opportunities because there's an ability you have where the Wi-Fi pours through you. And you know that.
Oh, you just made me think, thank you. You just made me think of 2 things that I have to say to you. One is about breastfeeding and the other is about sleep. So the other critical, the most easy thing you can do to get the Wi-Fi moving when you're feeling overwhelmed is to go, did I sleep? I haven't slept. Sleep is critical. And how do you get the best sleep? By drinking water in the day and not during the night because you forgot to drink water. But how do we get the best sleep? We get the best sleep from eating well. So if we're eating well, like really eating well, following the KIND diet, eating good, nourishing food that's healing our organs and allowing them to relax, then sleep is a blessing and I wake up refreshed. And now I can be present with you, my kid, my dogs, all the calls, all the emails, all the texts, all the things. Now I can manage it. But when I'm under because I haven't slept, because I was eating not good food, then everything's so much harder. What I was going to say about breastfeeding is you talked about the presence, about the present moment being where God lives. When I had my son when he would come onto my boob, right? I just remember everything going away, all the noise of the world. He healed me. Breastfeeding healed me because it was like all the noise went away. And the only thing that mattered in the entire universe was this baby on my boobie. And this present moment of just being in such heaven, in such union with him, allow him getting what he needed naturally for me giving him what he needed. And it just laser focused me so that it really helped me, I have to say, to no longer be sort of like, there's so much. It just got like right here.
I totally remember those moments in the middle of the night and like not wanting to get out of bed at first, because of course your eyes are burning and then you sit down in that like rocker. We all had the same one. And then you're like, oh, this is the moment I was made for.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is be in this moment. And not to be so Jewish, I've never said this on the podcast before, but I just feel like sharing it with you because I just learned it. My rabbi just said to me just last week, he said, the word for God in Hebrew is like this yud and hey, we don't even pronounce it. Like we say Hashem or Adonai, but it's not even the pronunciation of it. And he said that conjugation, those letters is actually is, was, and will be. So the name of God is that which was, is, was, and will be, because from God's vantage point, there's only one long present moment. There's no past and future. There's just now. And what's interesting, he was like, on the earth, it's 24 hours is a day. But on Jupiter, a day is 9 hours and 58 minutes. And if you were to go outside the solar system, 1 hour is 26 seconds. And if you kept going, time evaporates. So there's no time. So from God's perspective, it's all one present moment, all of it. And it's hard for us to wrap our mind around the universe, but like so much of that, whether you use the word God or the universe, like that's science, like that's just the way time is. That's Einstein, basically. That's the theory of time being elastic and it's relative. And in most of this universe, there's no time, right? And if you took something that has mass, like this crystal or this like coffee cup, and you threw it really fast, matter turns into energy when it speeds up. So really, that is where all the juice is in the present moment. That's where all the coherence is. And I just learned that, so I felt like sharing it with you, but it's so beautiful what you just said. And I do want to talk a little bit about the organics, because the other thing that happened to me just this last week is I took all these food sensitivity tests and had a phlebotomist come here 3 times and did all this testing. And now I'm only going to Air One. I'm only eating organic because I didn't realize the chemicals that were in my system. And I'm so grossed out by it. I've had now 2 drip hydration IVs at my, like, I'm like, get it out of me. So what's going on, Alicia? Like, we don't understand the poison. Even when you're eating vegetables, I realized I was eating a lot of garbage because it wasn't organic. So can you help shed a little light on that and then tell us about your vitamin line and why that might be helpful?
So I think, for my experience of it was I was pregnant with my son, and my midwife said, you should take a prenatal. And so I said, oh, but I eat like really, really well.
Right.
I mean,
do you know me? Do you know?
And she said, yeah, but what about when you're traveling, or, you on set and you can't get the food that day or whatever, there's something where it's in your way. What about as an insurance policy? And I thought I could get behind that. Fine. Sold. I'll take a prenatal, occasionally, or, for insurance policy. So now I'm looking for one and I can't find anything that's clean. And this really, really freaked me out. Wait a second. Vitamins are supposed to be to make you well. So why are they all loaded with chemicals? And even the ones that were the best brands, I called my super, super healthy friends, asked them, what are the best brands? They tell me the best brands. I go look at them. Okay, well, some of them had food-based stuff, but then it was wrapped in chemicals and it wasn't organic.
Oh, gross.
And it's not GMO verified. So I just went, okay, there's something really wrong here. No one has clean vitamins, like no one. So I said, well, then I have to make them for myself, for my friends, and for everyone else, because this is ridiculous. So I did. I went looking for a partner, and I found Garden of Life, and we connected together, and we decided to do this together. And we created the first ever non-GMO verified, certified organic, all food-based, no fillers, no binders, clean vitamins. So what you're taking is actually food. And that's called MyKind Organics. And it took a long time to make, and we had to come up with clean tablet technology. We had to come up with, which is the thing that makes them actually not have all those chemicals in them. And we had, when we made adaptogens and all that, we had to figure out ways to extract from turmeric and in a way, because they use hexane, which is gasoline.
Oh my God.
When you buy turmeric from anyone, it's usually, first of all, it's not organic. And second of all, its extraction process uses GMO corn oil and hexane. Gross. So we found ways to do it that was not that way, but it took a while, right? And then our gummies, all the delicious gummies are made, there's no gelatin in them. Just in case any of your audience doesn't know what gelatin is, aside from it just being an animal product, gross. But what it really is all the slaughterhouse leftovers.
That's so gross.
The toenails, the bones.
I can't even.
But then
no, keep going. This is so important. They have to know this about their gummy bears. It's so gross.
That's not even, so it's gross parts, but then they flash it with acid. So they're pouring acid all over it. And then that's what gelatin is. Great, cool.
Want some Swedish fish? Anyone? Huh?
So, which I think they make vegan ones. You just have to look for them, by the way.
That's exciting.
In case you need.
I need.
So, ultimately, it was just, we had to come up with a way to make a gummy vitamin that was going to be just as delicious. I didn't want to put sugar in there. Why would I want to take sugar? If I'm going to have sugar, it's going to be in the best vegan cake ever. I am not going to waste my sugar quota on a vitamin that I take every day. So,
fair enough.
Right? I mean, sorry. So I took all that had no sugar, no gelatin, and they are delicious and they're fabulous. So we just at every turn had to find a way to make, the collagen is all the rage. Everybody loves collagen. Well, you can't take, you can take it, but it's not going to do anything. You have to build collagen from within your body. So we created a thing, it's called collagen builder, because what it does is build collagen from within your body. And yeah, I think it's like a big gimmick right now. One of those, it's, it's a fad to eat collagen, but it's not going to do you any good.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. I literally just realized just how much is in what we're eating. And yeah, I mean, it can save your life, and it will. So I'm going to make sure that we put the links to this, and I'm going to do some stories about it, because of course, everything is a vibrational match. So of course I would meet you this week, because I just went non-dairy, gluten-free, organic, and then we get to have this conversation, which is so beautiful. I do have to ask you as a callback, because some of my audience, they knew you were coming on, and I was like, what do you want to ask her? And there were like 19 questions that who has time for all those? But just as a callback, because we all grew up with you, and one of the things is like, did you actually develop a crush on Paul Rudd? And if you didn't, how could you have possibly not have developed a crush on him? What the hell? How is that your life? How freaking lucky for both of you.
I don't think I did at the time, but I think as in a woman, I have. Later in years, I think I did. So I officially could say that I have a crush on him now. But I didn't.
Can we call him? Because maybe he's been waiting 25 years for that.
Married.
I know.
But yeah.
The chemistry was pretty real.
I take
it. Yeah. I mean, the chemistry was so good. It was just like, I can't not.
We're good actors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the other question people had was like, how much fun were you having on that set? Because it did seem like you had the best time.
To be honest, I was miserable.
Oh my God. So no, didn't have the best time.
I had fun. All my fun started later in life, because at the time I had fun on The Crush. I was having a ball. But on Clueless, I had been working 9 movies back to back, and I was a young girl, and I hadn't slept in forever. And I was in every single scene. So while Paul was coming in and out, and Donald Faison's coming in and out, like they're having the time of their lives, I'm over there every single day, like, and so I loved playing Cher. Do not get me wrong. I loved playing that part artistically. I was so turned on, but just, I was having an ulcer the whole time I remember just being in agony because I was so exhausted and tired and overwhelmed and stressed with my own personal life. So I can't say I was having a ball, but being Cher, I was having a ball artistically. It was amazing.
I think everybody wants to be her. And are you aware, I'm sure you are, that like everyone's dressing up like that now? Like that's like now the new look.
It's been going on for like, this has been going on for like 15 years. Every year is the anniversary celebration, and every year people go crazy, and it's amazing.
It's amazing that my daughter, who's 10, that's what she wanted to be for Halloween. And she's never seen the movie because it's not quite appropriate yet. And I'm like, how do you know about this plaid yellow outfit? She's like, I have to have it. So we have it in her closet in 3 sizes, because she wanted to do it for Halloween and Purim. So that's what she was the last 2 years, 4 times. Like, and her friends are all into it too.
That's crazy that she knows about it, but hasn't seen it.
She definitely does. And that's what I'm saying. It's so fun. But all of this is—
You're a good mommy for waiting. I like that you're conscious.
Well, I actually tried to show it to her. And then there's that scene, and it gets a little scary, and you know, the party, and you have to get dropped off in the middle of this. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, she can't see that yet. But
good job.
What's so cool about you is that you're literally the coolest person. And then you care so freaking much. And you were able to take all of this influence and use it for the best stuff. So I just think you're the best. And, for a lot of people, it's high stakes, right, to be an activist. But when you have so much, it's really high stakes, because you don't know how that's going to be received. And you're putting so much on the line. And you'd think, why? I'm just caring about the world. But sometimes people are like, I don't know, we'd rather not have an activist in the room. And you're willing to just keep beating that drum, and that takes actual courage. So you should feel so good about what you do every day. And it's so fun. So tell us what to look for. You have your books, you have the organic line, you have the podcast that's coming next. What's the thing that you want to send people to? You could even say multiple things, but we want to be a part of it. We want to get on board. We want to follow it. And even, do you want to just tell them where's the next place they can see you acting? I don't even know if any of that's public yet.
I think that the thing I would love most is for people to follow me on Instagram, because then they can hear about everything. That's the way it's my little news report, right? I can tell you what's going on. And I would love, if you're interested in any of this stuff, that you listen to my podcast, The Real Heal, and that you read my book, The Kind Diet. If you're even remotely interested in adding any of this goodness into your life, you can read it and then you'll have more information, and it makes it easy. I really break it down so that it's easy and not overwhelming. Talking about it here can sound like, oh my God, right? But in the book, it's just so laid out in a way that you go, oh, I can do that. That's not a problem at all. I can date my local vegan restaurants. That's easy. So, I think reading my book would be amazing. Going to Instagram so that you can follow all the activity and know what's happening. Look at stories, I think stories and page are important personally, because then, stories are probably the most important, because you get like the noise, the news, and the podcast. Listen to the first 10 episodes. It'll take no time at all. And then there'll be more to come soon. And as far as acting goes, you could watch on Hulu, Last Survivor, or The Requin. Those are the newest things that I had come out. Or if you have kids, Babysitter's Club is super cute. And and I just have a movie with Benicio del Toro and Justin Timberlake coming out, I don't know, probably early next year on Netflix. And I'm American Horror Stories is coming very soon. I'm in the season finale, and that will be like end of
my
September.
God, Alicia, I really don't know how you're one human being, but yeah, you're a good radio, really, really good radio. So I will put links to all of that. And because I really, really genuinely care about this, I'm going to, on my Instagram and at the end of this, I'm going to record an outro that I'm going to do a giveaway for people. If they go follow you and I can verify it, I'm going to give away, I'll buy like your book and some of the organics, and because I really freaking care. And then
you too, so we can get you what you need if you want.
It's the easiest thing to support you. Like, I'd be so happy to. I don't need you to do that, but I just want to. So we'll do that, and we'll also put links to it. But you're so adorable and hot and smart. You're the best. This was so great, and thank you for putting up with all of the things.
I put up with nothing. You were a delight. So thank you so much.